today I've got two beautiful coffees here. One is El Salvador Natural Noriega, and then this one here is Costa Rica Santa Elena Honey. And natural processed, honey processed, slightly different. Natural processed is where the coffee fruit is entirely dried upon the seed before it's harvested off, or rather hulled off, and then the bean can be roasted. Honey process is partially removing the fruit, leaving some of it on, so a little less fruit is remaining on the seed before being dried and hulled. We'll also be going through the Specialty Coffee Association cupping form. So this is part of some of the coffee downloads, and this is a free download online. You can search for it. I've also got it on my website. But we'll be looking at how to fill this form out. So don't worry if this is your first time with a really more complicated and professional cupping form. You can do it and basically understand. I've also got, and I'm going to be demonstrating a little trick here today, because coffee cupping is often done in groups of people. So there's safety protocols now with smelling and tasting cups of coffee in a group setting. You can do individual place settings. You could also consider for your team a group cupping. And the way you can do that is with multicolored spoons. So we're going to be looking at how we can do that. And you can choose green and pink, red and black, blue and white, lots of good color combinations. All right, so I've already filled out some of this on the dry fragrance. This El Salvador has a real sweet tropical fruit, kind of a bright, like a sweet raspberry tropical, something that feels like it is going to be crisp to it. Whereas this Costa Rica, it has a more syrupy sweetness to it. So maybe like a dried pineapple, kind of some dense sweetness, almost cream-like, like creamed milk. So this is the dry fragrance, and then I'm going to add this freshly boiled water to the cups and let it steep for 4 minutes. Now I have prepared some water here for rinsing my spoons, and very soon now I'm going to break the coffees. One, there we go. So that was 4 minutes, and that's a standardized immersion time for the coffee. So I just want to break the crust of the coffee here so that the grounds can fall to the bottom. I also release any aromas that have been trapped. I know that both of these are good coffees. I've been drinking them, but they just continue to smell really sweet. So the cupping form has a place for both fragrance and aroma. So you actually fill this out in completion after you've broken it. The cupping form is very interesting because it's built with some logic and expectation. So you do need to conform to that logic and expectation. And what I mean by that is that a specialty grade coffee is a coffee that will score at least 80 points. However, in the realm of specialty coffee, seldom do we have access to coffees that score over 90 points. We do have coffees that score over 90 points, but 91, 92, 93, 94 coffees, those are some of the highest scores in the world, and they sell for a lot of money. So most of the coffees that we have access to in a common form, and we will be drinking, they do score 82, 84, 86, 88. You know, so between that 82 and 88, that's where a lot of our coffees are going to fall if they're nice coffees, if they're fine, if they're clean, if they're fresh. So all that to say, this form has an expectation, and a lot of the scores that my coffees that I have access to, those scores will often fall between the points of, these are quarter increments. So between 7, and 9. Seldom do I score a 9. Seldom do I score a 7 or below. Unless there's a problem, then I'll go below 7. So both of these coffees here, they're both high quality for different reasons. We're judging both the intensity, so you can think of that like the volume of the fragrance or the volume of the aroma. Is it just jumping out of the cup? And then the quality. So quality is a horizontal axis, whereas intensity is a vertical axis. Now, with quality, you can have something that's very intense, but a bad, poor quality. You can also have something that's not so intense, but extremely high quality. So this is a good way to modulate that scoring. Both of these were quite fragrant, quite aromatic, and very good, in fact. So 8.25 is honestly what I'm leaning toward, and neither one stands out high above the other. It's helpful when you have two next to each other because you can give the one that's a little better, a little brighter, a little sweeter. You can give it a quarter point or a half point or even more than the other. So I'm going to go with 8.25 on both of these. And I mark that. All this time the coffee is cooling. Now you don't want your coffee to be too hot when you drink it. It's hard to perceive the flavors in the coffee if it's too hot. And then you also burn your tongue, which diminishes your ability to taste the coffees. Now I'm going to take my 2 spoons and bring them in and just kind of comb the top of the cup here. Now these, you can try to use any general soup spoon. I don't know, soup spoon is kind of a broad category. Definitely one of the Korean rice spoons, other than the long handles. Those Korean spoons are quite good. But these both have a nice round, shallow bowl. And that big round bowl, without too much of a handle, that big round bowl is good for when I want to comb across the center of my cup. And you'll notice that these have playground and community stamped on them. These are a couple rock coffee values. The goal of my coffee company, the reason I do coffee, is to try to make life better. Coffee is part of a daily ritual for a lot of people, or a special occasion for some as well. And we have the opportunity to make life better. Coffee alone doesn't just make life better, but it's the community that's built around it and taking it the next level, kind of the enjoyment and the playground of fun of coffee. So make life better by building community and providing a playground for amazing coffees. So wanted to put community and playground right there on the spoon, and we've got a cup and a kettle. Okay, so these coffees have been cooling. I also have my rinse water. You want to rinse your coffee spoon between each cupping. And then the other one was to catch those coffee grounds from the top of the cup. Now, these coffees have been cooling, and they're probably getting right down there. But what I'm going to show is kind of a COVID-friendly, so this is going to be the introduction of a COVID-friendly form of cupping. Normally with a cupping, we would have our one spoon, everyone in a room, everyone around a table, they rinse their spoon, they take a little slurp, and then they rinse their spoon again. They move on to the second cup, take a little slurp, rinse their spoon. Okay. A lot of people, even before COVID, they were concerned that that wasn't the most hygienic way to go about it, but no one changed the protocol. So the protocols have changed, and the new SCAA, Specialty Coffee Association protocols, call for a lot of cups and scooping and dishing into cups, and then people using cups and disposing of cups and washing cups. So an incredible investment for some coffee labs, or just a little less accessible. So this is kind of a cheat. This is a get around. If you don't have the access to a lot of dishwashing or cups or the investment that's required to do it, 2 spoons, especially if they're 2 different colors, is your new best friend. Now, this isn't SCAA endorsed, but this is a great way to not spread germs and also just to jump right back into cupping, even if you have a small group of people where you can practice this safety according to your company's or your country's standards. So I'm going to drink from the playground, and I'm going to use the community for my safety. So I'm going to hold the playground in my left hand because I'm right-handed. And what I'm going to do here, you can use either hand, I'm going to scoop a little coffee with my community, and then I'm just going to transfer that to my playground. Now I'm going to rinse the community spoon. I'm not going to rinse this one because this is the one I'm drinking off of. As you go between coffees, if you are concerned about this spoon needing to be rinsed, then you need to have your own personal water that you carry around the table or the cupping area with you. I'm cupping by myself for demonstration purposes. This is my water. Okay, so now I'm going to take a little scoop here, transfer it. Come back to cup number 1. Cup number 1, I can taste it and I could smell it in the beginning. It was very subtle, not enough to really jump out. But cup number 1 is just a little bit cleaner. It's got a real nice sweetness and a fullness. I think the sugars and the fruit sweetness is just a lot more clear in it. Whereas this one here, the honey processed, it's just a little more, it's not bad. It just has kind of a more coffee flavor, roasted coffee. Like when you roast nuts, when you roast coffee, it has kind of a nutty flavor to it. So these are 2 different regions. This is a more nutty coffee. It's surprising because it's a honey processed, but there you go. The other good thing about transferring my coffee to this spoon is that I help disperse the heat. So when you're cupping your coffee, yeah, it's really sweet, good body. I like that. The fruit is really coming forward. So initially that sweet raspberry tropical brightness, it's kind of rounded out more. It's like a raspberry jam now. So, you know, I don't want to burn my tongue, and as the coffee is cooler, I can perceive some of the sweetness and acidity in it more. That's a great coffee, but some of that initial sweetness and the fragrance, it's just really become nutty and smooth. I think the second coffee is the kind you might enjoy putting milk with. It's good black too. But this first one just has more vibrancy in the acidity. All right. So I'm going to put these aside and I'm going to finish filling out my cupping form. Yeah, the flavor on that one. So noting flavors, you know, stuff like nutty, toasted nuts. There's almost like a soft cocoa to that Costa Rica. On the El Salvador here, we had that raspberry jam. Could really be any fruit jam. Okay, so the lingering flavor of the first one was more pleasant than the second. The second one had a lingering flavor, just kind of a roasted coffee note. And that's not bad, but just that roast is, it's a flat flavor. It's not a dynamic and big round flavor. Okay, so I'll come back to this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through with the flavor, and you would want to be, you know, making notes as you went. I've had these coffees already several times, and I have enough memory that with only 2 coffees on the table, I can fill the form out pretty easily. But you'll want to make a note on the flavor And this is just a quality score. So the flavor on both of these is good, but I have to remove myself from the subjectivity where I could say, oh, I like fruit more, or I like nuts more. So on the flavor, really what I want to mark here is the complexity. How many flavors are layered in this? And there was more of a complexity of flavor in the first one, in the El Salvador Natural. And so that's going to have an 8. And the Costa Rica Santa Elena, that one's a 7.5. Honestly, the flavor of it was not very dynamic. The aftertaste was really nice on the first one. Just this lingering sweetness, and so that's going to be another 8.25. And the aftertaste on the second, not quite as high. I'm gonna keep it at 7.5. So sometimes you score up or down, and sometimes you kind of end up with a trailing number that kind of helps define the coffee. Now, acidity is both scored according to the quality and the intensity. And so there was a quality and an intensity, and I'm going to mark that higher on the first one. And it was present, but kind of in the mid-range on the second. So again, 8, 7.5. Body on both of these. Okay, so the body on the first one I felt was bigger, but yeah, that acidity continues to come out. That's nice. But don't confuse the complexity of flavor with body. Yeah, actually the body on both of these is big and good. So both of these have a nice heavy body, and it's a good quality. Both of them get an 8 for that score. The cup, as far as I have with one cup, it is uniform. Now, you should have 5 cups on the table for a real rigorous green scoring record on your form here. You can do that with 3 too as well, with a triangulation. If one of them is out, then you have to mark that down. But when you're scoring like this, that's just a straight 10-point score on uniformity, because all 5 have just made a line through those. And then balance. Balance is an interesting one. So I want acidity and sweetness and bitterness. You know, I don't want bitterness, but it should not be overpowering. I want all of these things to be in some kind of a balance, or just this roundness of flavor, right? With the sweet and the acidic and the aftertaste, a lot of these things lingering and in good balance. So honestly, unfortunately, on the Costa Rica, it was slightly imbalanced. I felt like that coffee roasted flavor was very dominant. The body was also big, but then the sweetness and acidity were a little bit low on it. So that is lacking in some balance quality. I'm going to give it a 7.25. It wasn't that balanced. But the El Salvador Natural, that one was quite balanced. Clean cup. If you find any defects, especially Quakers or aftertaste, any kind of ill effects there in the cleanness of the cup, you have to mark it down. Neither of these had any noticeable problem in the cup. And both of these were sweet. They had sweetness. Sweetness is just a yes or no quality. It's not how sweet was it, or was it lacking sweetness. It's just either there or it's not. I have another coffee that just had no sweetness, and so I wouldn't mark that one. And that would push it down into commodity level, because Arabica specialty coffee needs to have sweetness in it. Now overall, that first one, that's just overall, maybe that's my average of all of these, or just my personal impression of this. Like if I had to give this just one score, would I call it a 8? Would it be an 8.5? I'm going to call it an 8.25, just right in the middle there. And honestly, the Costa Rica is more like 7.5. It's a little bit lower in that scale. So I'll come back here. There are no taints, no faults, and so these would be multiplied and subtracted from the final score. And then I'll show you my final cupping score at the end. So one last time here. I've contaminated these because I put them both into the water. I didn't keep this one safe and reserved for my mouth, while the community spoon was only used in the coffees, and they can be community coffees that way. I've already mixed them together. So for demonstration purpose, had I not put them in the same rinsing glass together, I'd take a scoop with my clean community spoon for the sake of my community, and then drink from the transferred bowl. Again on the Santa Elena. It continues to cool with some nice acidity. It's not a bad coffee. I think when it's hot, that roasted note is just fresher and more prominent. All right, so we're gonna call that a day. Hope that was helpful. And next time, you know, I'll choose a different, actually I wanted to do pink and black, but both of these, oh yeah, that's community and playground. So next time I'm gonna be going pink and black. Hope that was helpful in terms of a COVID cupping cheat, and also the cupping form. There's lots of questions about the cupping form, how to best use it. Put your questions in the comment section. Contact me. Look for me on social media. Love to have a conversation around cupping, because it can turn into something that's very subjective, but the goal of the Specialty Coffee Association and professionals around the world is to make this as objective as possible. And the more we talk about it and share together, the more that we can help each other get on the same page. This is Adam with How To Coffee Pro. Hope that was helpful, and look forward to seeing you in the next video. Like or subscribe, and I'll make sure you get all of the latest announcements. Thanks.